Welcome to the Ryan Holtz Show. On this show, you can expect the latest, the greatest, and the best curated content on business, marketing, automotive, and lifestyle. Sit back, put in your earplugs, and let's enjoy the ride. Now, as always, I want to make sure you get the best in content that will help you monster your goals, both personally and professionally. I want to keep this conversation going, so please check me out on Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope at Ryan Holtz1. And then go over to facebook.com/Ryan Holtz Marketing, and we can chat there too. I also want you to visit www.ryanholtz.ca, as this will be where I put my almighty beloved show notes. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I am proud to bring you the Ryan Holtz Show. Let the beat drop and enjoy. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 14 of the Ryan Holtz Show podcast. Today I have an amazing guest on. We're going to talk about socks. We're going to talk about his phone moving during Facebook Live. We're going to talk about his competencies or lack thereof of using Skype. We're going to talk about real estate. We're going to talk about rental market. We're going to talk about several things. Jerad Cox is my guest. He's a realtor, educator, real estate investor, and community volunteer. He's been in the Edmonton real estate scene since 1998. Boom! We call that the OG of real estate, and is the only agent who has been with his office at Sterling Real Estate since it began 12 plus years ago. I hope Mr. Sterling is treating you very well. Jerad has a master's of education degree from the University of Alberta and believes in the empowering nature of education in both the real estate field and in the classroom. He currently sits as president of an Edmonton condominium corporation, as vice president and facility director for his local community. Most importantly, he is a lucky husband and father of 4 children. So a few things in this bio that stand out. Father of 4 children. Father of 4 children. Man, yes, I will shake my hand off to you. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. How are things today in lovely Fairmont?
Things are great. I mean, all I need a Facebook Live and you to do is if you see some sort of bear approaching me, which really could happen because there is a bear in the area right now, I guess. So just
I'm not
give me
gonna lie. If you do, I'm not saying you have to depend on the viewers to look at it and to look for it, and then I'll just sit here and just smile.
Well, just give me the heads up on the deer. So, Jerad and I were supposed to do this podcast a little while ago. I had some teeth pulled, and it's going to be a good segue into my first topic. The dentist is something that, like, people always joke when I say, like, I fear the dentist. I literally fear the dentist. My background is Jamaican and German, but in Jamaica, when kids are bad, there's a threat that the parents make, and they say, if you're bad, we're going to take you to the dentist. So I think this kind of like clinical brainwashing was started at a very young age, and my fear of needles. So I've procrastinated on my wisdom teeth. Well, I'm a 33-year-old man, so I guess you can do the math. But I'm super excited to have you on the show. Jerad, you've been on my Twitter. You're an interesting story because I think you've been on my Twitter for, God, I think you're honestly one of my very first followers. I was still working at the dealership when I first kind of came into Twitter heavy, and I know that Twitter, in my opinion, has died down a bit, but I think that back then Twitter was rampant. So there's a cool little community there. So just tell me what's up.
Well, right now I am humbled. Every day we get humbled a little bit. Humiliated is one thing. Humbled another thing. I was humbled today by my lack of Skype knowledge. And so thank you very much in advance for helping me out with that. Absolutely. Things are going good. It's funny. If you keep your eyes open, you see something new every day. And I saw something amazing. I tried to fit in a quick run to the produce store today. And I'd never been to the produce store. They have great deals, but I'd never been there right at open. And I thought, well, I got to make sure I'm prepared and on time for Ryan, so I'm going to go right at open. And they have a last-minute pile or kind of, almost out, so they put it on kind of clearance section. And I walked in, I saw people literally fighting, pushing old people pushing each other to get like the box of tomatoes for $3 and the box of grapes. And I looked at the lady as I walked in. I said, does this happen every morning? She says, every morning. And she goes, and the deals aren't even that good today. She says, I see old ladies pushing old men around. I see women. It was unbelievable. So it was interesting. It was kind of humbling, but it was also a pretty neat realization that I'm pretty lucky that I don't have to race into the produce store at 9 o'clock and push ladies and children and elderly people out of the way to get my produce at a reasonable price.
And here's the thing, you know, my wife brought up a really good point. We're shopping for some clothes a few weeks ago, and we just were in the store, and the manager said, "Hey, you know, so and so, Mike, you know, you can go take your break now." And my wife kind of looked at me and said, "Ryan, that's why we're both entrepreneurs. Like, could you imagine, you know, somebody, you know, in the sense of literally, you know, telling you, hey, you can go take a break now, and, you know, telling you how to dictate your life and your success and things like that." And I just kind of think, like, back to your little story there, the biggest thing about entrepreneurship or going to business for yourself is the flexibility of your time. I think that's so important.
Yeah, it is. And I think it makes a lot of sense. And we get reminders, right? We get reminders like that one's an excellent one. Today's an excellent one for that, for me too. And just to be thankful too, right? Just to be thankful. I mean, and not take advantage of too many things. We're getting far too serious first thing in the morning, aren't we?
Well, it's not serious. It's not serious, because I think that when you're in business, and I mean, the reason I started this whole podcast, and it's been fantastic, is just to have the conversations with people who are in business, and not just business, but life, you know, doing innovative things, thinking outside the box. I mean, I'm so anti, you know, go to school, and I know, and this is where I really wanted to have you on, is we're going to play the devil's advocate. So I'm going to poke at your teaching ability. And the fact that you're a teacher, and then also poke at the ability that you kind of left teaching and then went into entrepreneurship. And then, you know, maybe we can talk about the lack of, you know, how backdated the curriculum is. And I mean, I speak at a lot of schools and things like that. And, you know, you're looking at even the junior high kids are something that really resonate with me, because, you know, they're asking me questions about, you know, I don't know what I want to do when I go to post-secondary, or I don't know, you know, what I want to do when I'm in high school, or, you know, is the only way for me to be successful to go to school and get a degree? And, you know, when you're literally in a school and you got all the faculty there, and you're like, you don't have to go to post-secondary to be successful. And I will stand by that. Is education important? Absolutely. But I mean, look at what's going on in the world with startups and all these different ideas that are coming into fruition. So give me a response to that as a past teacher, and I know you still substitute and things like that. And then give me your counter response to that as an entrepreneur who literally said, "Yo, I got to go do something a little different."
Well, I think we agree on a lot of things with that. A couple of things is that education, learning, is empowerment. That can't be confused with a traditional education system that we have in place.
What do you mean?
So
what do you mean by that?
You start at 5 years old in kindergarten, you go for a half day, 1 to 6, 7 to 9 in junior high, and then high school, 10 to 12. You know, and this is the simplest example I can give. We still have summer break.
Yeah.
Kids love the summer break, but it's obsolete. It's outdated. It doesn't need to exist, because the only reason the summer break was instituted was so that the kids could help the parents farm the land.
Interesting.
So that was one of the main indicators. Well, how many farmers do you know in Edmonton? Urban gardeners, bless your heart, urban gardeners, but you do not need your 9-year-old at home working 8 hours a day during that break.
Well, wait a second. We got to bring a further point into this. Most kids that age, I don't see them do any yard work. They're literally like, they're on their iPads or their phones and doing all kinds of stuff, but I don't see the whole yard work thing. Like, where's that old school chore? So I do agree with you on that.
And you know what? It's old school, but my kids do it too. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they watch me do it, and they actually want to do it themselves. They ask me, my daughter asks me, "Daddy, can I do that, please? Daddy, can I, sorry, I just have to quickly add something in here." Oh, great. Okay. Well, this is going to be an expensive Facebook Live.
Don't worry, it'll be worth it.
You got to love technology. And there you go. I'm going to learn something more about technology today. But I say, come out in the yard with me and I'm going to work. And if you want, you can help. 3 years old, Daddy, me help. Me help. They can, I pick up. And are they constructive with it? No, but they try. They want to do it. They want to be a part of it, right? They want to be involved, because that's just like education. That's an empowering thing. They're involved. They're with it. They're engaged. Yep. And my daughter comes out, and sometimes I just say, okay, let's pick up 10 things. I don't, it's not 8 hours, but it's 10 things, and they do it. And they love it. And say, okay, great, good for you. Let's play. Thank you. And I think that that's modeled too, right?
Yeah.
They know Daddy gets up in the morning and waters the lawn. That's what Dad does.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? I think the biggest thing you really got to kind of take into consideration with that is, again, I go back to, the traditional schooling and how that applies into business now. And, just on LinkedIn and things like that, the conversations I've had with teachers are extremely frustrated, where to the point where they say, hey, we're overworked and underpaid, but, our curriculum is just not matching with the times of 2017. So, thank you for your perspective.
Part 2 of episode 14. So where we were
the glitch-free version.
The glitch-free version. But where we left off was basically you just saying, my biggest question was, what made you leave teaching and go into entrepreneurship by becoming a realtor?
Well, I think the key thing for me was just that it's a lot of it's the same stuff. A lot of it's the same stuff. It's education based. It's getting empowered from education. It's finding out what's going on in the marketplace, what your property's worth, how you can improve your property, the options out there. I really enjoy that part of the business. And most importantly, I enjoy helping people. That's the other thing that ties in between both companies with both endeavors is you're helping people and you're empowering people and you're creating better futures at different phases of their lives. And
why do you say empower people? How does that empower people?
Whenever people cross the bridge from not having understanding to understanding something, it empowers them. It empowers them to act out positively. Okay. I found that to be true for the most part. So when you can help facilitate that by giving information, by giving them experience, by having them experience things and go through the process of learning, that's where the empowerment takes place.
Okay. Yeah, you're very right. Education is power. Why? One thing I have a question about, and I'm not a realtor, but I love real estate, is when I look at the MLS and I look at the listings, and I love real estate. Whether it's here in Fairmont, in Invermere, whether it's back in Edmonton, Calgary, Sunshine Coast, I love real estate. But it's crazy to me because I find that from market to market on real estate, it doesn't change in terms of, it seems like you could have, look how many realtors there are in Edmonton, but it seems like only 5 to 8% are actually doing all the listings and all the work. So why is there so many realtors, but then it's always the same names that kind of come up when it's coming to buying and selling property?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I am in love with real estate too. It's sad. I think I've posted some Instagram stories of I've been working 18 hours today, and I'm calming down by watching HGTV, watching $1 million listings off of HGTV.
But Jerad, in this question, I don't want a politically correct answer. Is there just a lot of shitty realtors, or is there why is less than 10% of the active realtors doing? In my opinion, it seems like they're doing 90% of the listings. Maybe I'm wrong. You're the realtor, but it just seems like I continuously see the same names, and they're the same. They're doing the same. They're the ones that are doing the performance. They're doing the volume of the real estate, right? Why is that?
And you know what? Some people don't want to do volume. Some people do it for the lifestyle, right? I know that you talk a lot about being the Versace versus the Walmart.
Yep.
Some people don't want to be Walmart. Some people don't want to be slaves to their phones. Some people don't want to have to wake up at 5 a.m. and stay up till 1 a.m. and stress about deals and not be able to accurately double check and cross the T's and dot the I's and make sure. Some people believe that, myself being one of them, is that quality trumps quantity. I would rather do 2 deals this month, not because I don't want the deals, but I want to make sure that they're good and that they're proper and everything's good, and my client feels like they're my only client. I would much rather feel that and have that sense of accomplishment, and then have 10 deals, be scrambling, having clients call me, oh, you forgot this, or you forgot that, or have periphery service providers like mortgage brokers or lawyers saying, hey, you dropped the ball here, hey, you dropped the ball there. Hey, I would much rather have quality over quantity of service. And just to answer your question with the question as well, is how many markets do you see where you don't see a domination of one type or the other? Look at the food industry. Look at grocery stores. There's, 3 or 4 players? There's probably 200 independent grocery stores across Canada, but there's the big 3 or 4, right? And they dominate 95, 99%. And that's to a certain, so to answer your question, to a certain respect, some of it is just business, and that's just the way that business is sometimes. Sometimes there are certain businesses that just command a certain market space, because the more you sell, the more advertising budget you have. The more advertising budget you have, the more people see it. And don't get me wrong, too. You said something very smart. You said that it seems as though that they're selling it.
Yep.
But if some people don't want to, and pardon my French, but some people don't want to whip out their sales statistics.
Yeah.
They don't need to whip it up. They can just show you. Yeah. Right? And they can show you with the work that they do.
Absolutely. But
that's why I love just transitioning to the social media aspect of it versus the traditional advertising, right? 99% sold, call me now, da da da, right? I Love You Man, right? The movie I Love You Man, the big billboards of whatever.
Yeah, but even
that's what I love in social media.
But even on my Facebook, right? I have realtors on my Facebook, and it's like every time around the same time at month end, you always see the realtors post up like, I was number 3 agent in my office, or number 5 agent, or this and that. But again, right? You're right. I mean, in the grocery stores, you got big players, right? On the internet, what's the big players on the internet? Facebook, right? Amazon, Google, Snapchat, like these are big players, right? The banking system in Canada, I mean, look at the banks. I mean, my God, that's the best business ever, right? Look at cell phone companies, telecommunications.
I was just going to say that cell phone companies. Right? My cell phone's going to get a chunk out of me.
Yeah. But again, right? You've been in real estate since 1998. So for people who are now wanting to get into real estate, or they're wanting to invest, or they're wanting to become a realtor or a mortgage broker, like how have you had such longevity since 1998? Like, was there some tough times where you said, whoa, I'm going to have to kind of maybe go back to work and supplement some of my income? Like, how the heck have you been in real estate since 1998?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, is that you have to understand, whether it's in real estate or any other business, what your goal is in the business.
Yeah.
My goal for me, I have very specific goals. And I've always wanted to pursue my own personal education and to work with kids, to work with adults, to sell real estate.
Okay.
I've always wanted to do kind of all of it. I thought at one point that I would just choose one or the other.
Sure.
But you realize it's kind of like choosing between your wife and your kids, or between one thing that you just can't. They're different loves, but they're loves. They intertwine themselves. As far as longevity,
I love you, Nora.
There's a couple of basics I've kept to. A couple of basics I've kept to. One is it's a people business. It's a service business. And that's where I think that gets lost often for people. So if you show that you can provide service, if you show you care about people, then you'll get it. And the reality also is high market, low market, it's always a numbers game.
Jared, and hold that thought. Claudius, what's up?
Number of people.
Just hold that thought, Jared. So on the podcast here, I just want to give some shout out to Facebook Live. It's doing pretty well. Claudius, how are you? Mickey, how are you? Danielle, James Bennett, Tony White, thanks for chiming in. Mrs. Holtz, I mean, it's a good little gang. But continue, Jared. I just got to acknowledge everybody.
Nice to see you.
There you go. But no, in terms of longevity, I mean, continue.
Yeah, and I think longevity too has to do with I just love to do it. I love doing it. I get up. It's very rare that I go, oh, I don't want to take a listing, or I don't want to take a telephone call. And it goes back to that base. it's something that I truly love to do, and it's not for everyone, right? It's not the career for everyone.
Did you love being a teacher?
Absolutely. And then that's why I said so many things. And to get back to my yard, because I love talking about my yard, I also love that for different reasons, but they're all similar. It's persistence, it's consistency. You can't close the door.
Okay. Hold on. Let me hold off here though. Okay, so you love teaching, you love real estate, but why did you leave teaching and focus on real estate? Money? Success? I mean, we know what teachers make. I know what a good realtor can make. Let's be honest here. Come on, right? So I guess what I'm getting at is, did money supersede your passion for teaching, or was like, why did you transition from teaching to real estate? Lifestyle. Okay, but lifestyle involves money.
I think the lifestyle is helpful.
Sure, but lifestyle does involve money, as you know.
I think it's lifestyle, and not in the money aspect of it.
Yeah.
I think in the fact that I can get up and I can go and talk to my daughter. I don't have to say, okay, hurry up, you got 50 minutes, we got to get you to the daycare.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what my 5-year-old says when she gets up?
Yeah.
Hi, Daddy, I love you. Can we snuggle? And she climbs underneath the blanket. I'm on the couch usually by then. Climbs underneath the blanket and she snuggles with me for 10 minutes. She says, I love you, Daddy, but you're too hot. I have to go. That's how my kids start the day.
But that's beautiful. But if somebody's a new realtor right now, like, I mean, and again, right, I'm just with the context of the podcast, I wanted to bring value to people, and people send me messages all the time, not just realtors,
Absolutely.
everybody, you know, hey, Ryan, I'm working at a job, I'm doing 9 to 5, I don't feel like I'm getting fulfilled from this. And like, for instance, right, like I always say, right, if you're a good boy and you're a good girl and you go to your job, you're going to have this little pension waiting for you. That's changed now. Look what Sears did. You see what Sears tried to do? They're trying not to pay out on pensions. So even if you become a good boy or a good girl and you go and work 25, 30 years, you don't even get the stupid watch, but you know, you're putting your hands. So now people are starting to wake up and start to say, oh, wait a second, I gotta take my own life into my own hands. And this is why you see a lot of like multi-level marketing and Roden and Fields and, you know, World Financial Groups and, you know, multi-level marketing, because people are just trying to find that extra source of income, you know, Beachbody, you know, things like this, right? But at the end of the day, you chose real estate, and yeah, you're an OG where you've been doing it since 1998. But and it was also different with the marketing. I mean, social media wasn't huge in 1998, right? Like, you know, it's like non-existent. So now if you were like, I'm just trying to get you to like teleport yourself back to like 1998, remember what you did, and then come right back to me in 2017. How and what would you give advice to small business people that like are like, yo, Jerad, I got kids to feed, I have bills to pay, I need to grow my business, and I want to be able to say, you know, hi daughter, hi baby, like let's spend time in the morning, but I still got my responsibilities. So give like a couple actionable items they could do like today that would maybe propel them in that direction.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. You asking me about that. For me, there's a couple of key things. One is ask yourself the question that you just asked me. Why do you want to do this? The one thing I like about real estate is that there is an uncapped potential, right? Versus your 9 to 5 job. There's a cap on every 9 to 5 job. You can only make so much per hour, and then they're either going to lay you off, or you're at the top, you're managing, but you're not creating your own destiny within that sense. Entrepreneurship gives that opportunity, and I like that self-empowering nature of it, right? It's really good to also, as far as what you can do with your time. You know, your time is your biggest resource.
Sure.
So to make sure that you plan your time and to talk to people who have done it before and get good advice. If I could talk to my 1998 self now, those would be the things that I talk about. Make sure you have a plan.
Okay, but you're saying talk to somebody else and have a mentor. In the real estate business, we know that it's very sales oriented. I'm not a realtor, but I mean, I love real estate, and it's, you know, I know a lot of realtors, and some, you know, will say, oh, I'd be more than happy to, like, you know, mentor somebody. I personally think that's bullshit. Because it is a highly competitive field. And, realtors are, it's kind of like sometimes you talk to people and you feel like they have that one ace of spades up their sleeve that they don't want to give to anybody because it could be advice. I don't think, I'm a firm believer in life that you could just put out all your secrets and all your advice to people, and 99% of them won't even act on it anyway, so who cares? So, when I do the podcast, and you know me, right? I built my business off of just straight up, talking to people and engaging and having fun with it and doing things like the podcast and building that value. And you're right. I think entrepreneurship to some degree is very, very lonely. It's a very lonely place because you're constantly playing poker and you have to be extremely strategic. But, at the same token, you want to give back into your own industry. So for you, what's a typical, I've seen a lot of realtors lately post things of this nature, basically saying, we want our industry to have a better reputation. We feel like, the price of admission into getting your license should be maybe a little bit tougher. Unfortunately, I don't want to say that like a blanket statement, but, almost anybody could go and get a real estate license. I'm not saying that, but you get what I'm saying. A lot of realtors even say, I wish we could have our colleagues and our peers, we want to make our industry better. And, having said that, we feel that we want to, attract better quality people into our industry. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And there have been a lot of strides. When I started off, it was in the summer from from university. Took a 3-week course. 3-week course, 6 days a week, wrote the test, passed it. Then you take a 1.5-day course with the local authority. You write an exam, you're done. You're a realtor. Yep. Congratulations.
Yep.
And now it's much more like a semester college course.
Yeah.
Right. So, in that time, and it's been 20 years. But the other thing too is that we're finding too that the after licensing re-education or continuing education aspect of it is also picked up. Every couple of years, you have to do things.
Sure.
And I think, for entrepreneurs or people trying to get into the real estate business, if you're an entrepreneur and it's not real estate centric, you're constantly digging. You're constantly digging for new information. New things. If you're a social media marketer, you're constantly looking, okay, what's especially in the tech sector, right? Especially in the social media sector. And for realtors, that's more and more, it's more and more prevalent today as well, because you're having to look at a whole bunch of different factors that are coming in, things like comp-free or low commission, businesses, the decision from the Competition Bureau for comp-free and that they can be included on MLS would be the biggest one that you could see. And then you also have to keep up to date constantly on the kind of the current events because, information age, right? We're not in Vancouver or Toronto. We're in Edmonton, and our market is not Vancouver or Toronto. But you know how many times people talk to me here and ask me about the Vancouver or Toronto market and what's going on with it?
Yeah.
It's, you have to know your P's and Q's, right?
Absolutely. And how do you stay on top of that? Or is there any tips and tricks that you have? I know with the phone, you have everything coming there. That's the morning paper. And, everybody's using their phone on the toilet, right? You've used your phone on the toilet before. We all can agree to that. And that's where you're getting in,
I've heard you say that. I'm not confirming nor denying that.
Well,
I'm pleading no contest.
No contest to that, because if you lied and said no, I'd just call you a liar and your integrity would be shot anyway. But this is how people are taking in their information, right? And I think that you really have to. There's so much information. How do you narrow it down to what you actually want to see and bring in? Is there tips and tricks that you have for that?
Well, for me, I bring in information from sources that I deem to be reliable, first and foremost, which is important. I always try to make sure that it's sourced twice before I actually believe that it might be true. Okay, and things that don't, I don't watch a lot of news. I don't do a lot of the stuff that if the news comes on the radio, I turn that off because I limit what I do consume to what within my business often. So it's important to learn certain things, but I spend the bulk of my education time looking at all of the different aspects that, whether it's the current housing market, international housing market, the national housing market, things that are going to impact my clients, like CMHC rates, mortgage rates, things like that. And it's nice too, because over time you develop a network of colleagues that are experts in their field, like mortgage brokers, like legal, like things like that. Sure. Where they also start sending you information as part of their newsletter, and you've allowed them into your kind of email chain, that you're not just tossing every 30, because you get something every day and they're trying to sell you something, but it's, legitimate information that you want to work with.
Sure. Absolutely. I think that one thing that I want to talk about in terms of, especially people are watching, is how to filter out the information that you want and take that in. And I mean, usually everybody is very, very busy, so you don't have much time. I use, apps like Notes on my iPhone, Evernote. I literally make folders in my phone that if something comes to my head, or I basically kind of seen something that was really, I guess, I don't know, impacted me, or I think that could be of use, I just put that in a little note. I know you're an Android guy. I'm an Apple guy. So Siri has been my best friend. Can simply just say, hey, Siri, add a note. I try to make my everyday life a little bit more consistent with just getting rid of a lot of the crap and simplifying things. That being said, on this podcast, I would have to say, in the last few years, what I've noticed myself doing, and many other successful people, is they're just doing a complete clean out of their life, meaning it's simplicity, it's cleaning everything out. Like, if you don't need that extra suit, or you don't need that extra folder on your iPhone, or you don't need, just simplifying everything. Because I always say, a clear space is a clear mind. A clear mind is ready to rock, and it's ready to perform. The moment you feel like your day is starting to implode on your head, the chances of that day becoming a great day for you are probably going to decrease. And, people say all the time, like, Ryan, I like to feed a lot of questions that people ask me, but they always say, how do you do all of what you do? I live in 2 homes. I spend half my time in BC, boom, and then I spend half my time in Edmonton or wherever the heck I am. And it's simply because of organization. And I mean, my wife, right? She's amazing. But becoming a new father. Yeah, because absolutely. But I'm on TV. No, just joking. But it's one of those things where you're very right. Being a father now, that's changed the game. And I think I really agree with people when they say, Ryan, even before we were parents, they've said, it's just something you guys have to go through. And you're right. If I can say one thing, we're all in the business of day trading attention and time. That's all it is. You're talking about being a realtor, talking about being able to spend time with your daughter in the morning, but also talking about resources that you can stay on top of things to be able to educate and empower your clients. That all involves time. So, you're sending me emails at 5 a.m. on Sunday. You're sending me an email at 5 a.m. on Sunday, and I have to give you props for that, because it already tells me the kind of person that you are. I mean, you're sending me an email on a Sunday at 5 a.m. So talk about a little bit of how your work ethic has got you to where you are right now. Because again, in real estate, because we are talking about real estate, how many realtors get licensed and they're gone within, I don't know, a year? Did they even make it a year? Like, they're gone. They're nowhere to be found.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what started to, that's when they really started to look at the education component of it and saying, well, we're not preparing them properly if we're getting an attrition rate of new realtors of 90%. So here's 100 people that just graduated and are taking the course, and this time next year there's only going to be 10 left. That's not okay. I don't know too many industries that if you got a certificate, if you got your bachelor's of education degree, if you would, out of 100 that would graduate in your class, or 1,000 in your class, if you're at the U of A, that only 10% of that would actually be teaching, and 90% of that would be out of the industry altogether. Just speaking about the work ethic part of it, I mean, I've always had 2 jobs. I mean, I remember being 8-10 years old, and delivering flyers. I started delivering flyers at 8 years old, and I was excited about it. Twice a week, I would deliver flyers. And, junior high and high school, I played on every sports team. I just always had that initiative to get up and do it. And I still had 2 jobs. I delivered flyers, I refereed soccer. Whatever that looked like, there was always an opportunity. I never looked at it as a job. It was just another opportunity. And you know what? Some of them you pass by, but you're not going to know if they're good or not for you if you don't try them.
Absolutely. You know what the thing is too? I find that business, or again, I always talk about business, and sometimes I get sick of the word business because I'm like, business can be whatever you want it to be, whatever your success is, and I definitely want to say this on the podcast is, if you're happy doing what you're doing right now, in my opinion, you're successful. I don't care what that is. I don't care if it's.
Yep.
I don't care if it is. I no discrimination on success, in my opinion. Like, if you're happy, you wake up and you love your day, you killed it. Now, that being said, people, when they talk and they, you mention ideas or different concepts to them. For instance, if you want to do something in life and it's a certain kind of opportunity, for instance, I want to live 50% of my time at my home here in BC and 50% in Edmonton, Alberta. Man, people would probably think this guy's crazy. How the heck is that even possible? My way of thinking is, if I can literally think it, it can be done. And I've always been that way since the time I can remember. If the idea can come to my head and I can actually think it, it can be done. And I believe that, like, with my soul. So you talking about having 2 jobs, I mean, you're formatting your lifestyle. If you think it, what's your mentality coming into that? Like, how do you condition your brain that way?
You know what? Again, I talked about modeling with my kids, and that's what my father modeled it with me. He would get up and be out of the house working for the city. He worked 41 years, same job, out the door at 6 a.m. And then he would come home and he would volunteer. He'd do all the housework. He'd volunteer. He was always my soccer coach. He refereed. He ran organizations. He ran community leagues. So I think that for me, that was normal.
Yeah. For
me, that's normal. That's what I grew up with. And everyone wants to grow up a little bit to be like their dad as much as possible. And I think that I had pretty lucky to have such a good role model within that. I always had that drive. I am a older, portlier version of you in that I also was semi-successful in certain sports growing up, and played some college soccer and things like that. And guys who follow me here on Facebook and will watch us on Facebook Live, they will attest to the fact that I was semi-successful at it. But it gave me a lot of opportunities. But I had that drive, and I also was exposed to
self-proclaimed and critically acclaimed.
Yes. And it's funny because I'm going to see a guy I haven't seen in probably almost 6 years that I used to play soccer with later today. So that's going to be fun. But for me, what you saw was in that environment, me being 12 years old and having to go down to Calgary during my summer and stay away from home and do a training camp where you're training 3 times a day, and seeing players with more skill and more drive than you be successful, but see players with less skill and more drive than you have successful. All of these models kind of growing, and also seeing the ones that were gifted and you just knew that they didn't have it in between the ears or in the heart, that they wouldn't progress, right, as you get older. And no guys who are out there watching this, I'm not naming names. But so I mean, I've always kind of had that drive, and just as an adult, can't really play soccer anymore. Too many concussions, but a lot of the kind of that work ethic, I think, was kind of grown through that as well.
You know what I think, though? I think it was. Sport is great, but the context on sport is the skills that you learn in sport are character based and they're transferable into anything that you do in life. But with sport comes the context of your current life and current situation. Do the best people in the world play for the NHL? I don't think so. I think that sometimes maybe families could afford to put their kids in, sporting events, and they were very good and worked really hard. And unfortunately, other kids didn't get the same opportunity, probably had amazing skill. And that's kind of the world that we live in. But I think sport is something that that is huge. But, you know, going back into my days doing sport in school, for me, I come from humble beginnings, so that was a part of my life where I had to fend for myself. So it didn't allow me to put all my focus into it, even though it was the only focus I had that I think kept me out of a lot of trouble and kept me really geared and really goal-oriented and focused. And, you know, I'm forever indebted into sport. I used to play the trumpet and saxophone, so I'd like literally take off my football equipment and then go into like choral music. So you know, all my teammates are like, "Is Ryan singing in the choir? What the hell?" And I'm like, "Yo, man, it's just the way I am." But one quote, and we're getting into quotes, is that Jada Pinkett Smith, I really like her. She's Will Smith's wife, but she was on a radio talk show, and the guy basically asked about, you know, her children and how she raises her children and things like that. And she said, I always teach my children to not care about being liked, but rather being respected. Because she said, I feel that when people care about being liked, that's the trap. Because I think when you care about what people think of you and like, where's the innovation going to come from? The reality about innovation and doing big things in life is and this is fact, is you have to be comfortable with being ignored. Like, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because if you're going to go down a path or a road that's never been driven down, it's going to be a bumpy ride. It's going to be a bumpy ride. And I think that you're right, talking about your past. I had a lot of friends, so people always ask me a lot of the time, especially when I speak at schools, like, "Ryan, were you a popular kid? Were you whatever?" And I had a lot of friends, but I was always very, you know, I like being by myself. I like being alone, and I think that I always seen the world in like 4D at a young age. So again, right, you're doing business. You're a little bit older than me. I mean, what do you say to that? And what is one quote that you do live by that is applicable not only in your past but in your present?
Well, I'll double up on you there. I'll give you one good one and one little off-color one. The one that
Sure.
I used a lot, and I continue to use is if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And I think that's you know, it's very it's very applicable to, and that, I think it was Gerald Ford who said that. And then one, to be honest with you, I don't know if someone else said it, but I started saying it, and then I just coined it and phrased it myself. I said, you know, a lot of times excuses are like buttholes. Everyone's got one, and they usually stink. So you can take either one of those and use them.
Well, the quote that I all time live by, and I don't know, it wasn't me that created it, but it basically said, "Do not let perfection hinder you, but intent is everything." And what that means is, you know, the podcast, maybe you don't have the right equipment. Maybe you're doing the book and the book isn't coming out right. Maybe, you know, you get up on stage, and I mean, I remember when I first started speaking on stage, I had some horrible moments. Oh, it was horrible. You know, it just was like I was clawing my way through it. But at the end of the day, it was always the intent that meant everything. So when people say, "Oh, I have an idea and I want to start something," I always tell them, and I always say the same thing. I'm like, "Just start. Just do it. Like right now. Just do it." They're like, "Well, but Ryan, no. Just do it. Just start."
Absolutely.
Just do it. So your quotes kind of go into that. Like, so when you have dark days and you have days that aren't so good, maybe you're not feeling motivated, or maybe you just got punched in the mouth, because you're a human, so I'm assuming that you get punched in the mouth once in a while from your days, and it just, sometimes you wake up and you're like, I had the best intentions and it just went. How the hell do you deal with it? How do you deal with it? And then you also have kids that depend on you to be the strength.
Yeah.
How do you deal with it?
I think one of the key things with that is that I break things down into smaller segments. So if you have big things, if you get punched in the face, if you have something fall through, something not work out well, you know, you feel that heaviness kind of come over you. You feel like, you know, you just want to go, like, whatever your release is, go have a shower, go for a run, go to whatever, and kind of deny it. For me, you have to restart your building blocks, pushing towards the next one. Sometimes 5-minute increments, right? You know, sometimes you're exhausted. You know, you can't. It's the old Chinese proverb, right? How do you eat an elephant? And it's one bite at a time. And a lot of times, that's and it's true. You can't eat it in one bite. And so a lot of times when those things happen, and it's funny, I just had one, I had one of those mornings, I think I waited till 8:20 to turn my phone on. And I had a deal collapse, and I had a couple other things happen that were just kind of off the rails, and I knew I was going to, rather than progressing and being proactive in my business, which is what I try to do in my first few hours of the day, which is also going back to your previous point, spending your first few minutes, your first hour of what you work at, no matter what's going on, unless it's an absolute emergency, to be proactive. And then you have at least that part of time that you're being proactive towards the future of your business. That will carry a lot of momentum. But then having to take time that you thought you were going to be proactive within your business and moving forward and having to be reactive instead and kind of troubleshoot a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's where you break it down into those 5, 10, 15-minute increments, your checklists, your little notes on the phone. You say, okay, so for me to get back to where I was, I need to do these 3 things, or I need to work on this for 15 minutes, talk to these 3 people, and then that's it. And then reward yourself by doing a progressive act afterwards as well, right? Doing a prospect, talking to a prospect, emailing a prospect, or congratulate yourself for past work that you've done. Send a check-in email with a past client. I just sent one or to someone that you knew that may be in business, or a colleague. A lot of times just calling someone, just saying, hey, I'm checking in to see how you're doing. Too, whether, for me, I'm very blessed. I have a great crew here in Sterling Preddy. And Sterling, if you're still on, I'm not just saying that because you're on. But, he'll sit sometimes, he'll just call, we'll just talk. And sometimes I'll just call him.
Jared, going back to your butthole quote, I don't want any kind of like, I don't want you kind of rubbing Sterling and kind of getting those brownie points, because then I'm going to start thinking weird things about you. You know what I'm saying? You're talking about the whole butt. I don't want no butt sniffing here. But no. I hear what you're saying, and it's interesting.
I hear it.
No, it's interesting. Like what you're saying to me, the one word that comes to mind is firefighter, because you're constantly putting out fires. You're in the 911 business, but you know how to cope. And I look at. I'm a life guy. Like, even if you ask anybody in my close circle about me, like I'm somebody that every time I travel somewhere or wherever I go, like I want to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like, I take in life in 3D. And we were in Vancouver not too long ago, and if you look at East Hastings, that street, have you ever seen East Hastings in Vancouver? It's like a.
Yes. I've stayed right down near there in Water Street and stuff.
Yeah, and I think what I find interesting is the socioeconomical impact of it, where you literally cross a street and you're like in Gastown. But you look at like the difference between people that maybe whatever happened in their life, it was tough for them to cope with. And then you look at other people that said, I had a lot of crap that happened in my life, but I was able to cope. And I really don't think anybody has the answer on how to do, either or. But I don't know. I think for me, I just really try to, if I come across somebody that I can feel needs to like talk or be an ear and not just say, hey, how are you, Jared? And then you say good, but then I kind of think like, I don't think Jared is having a good day. Maybe I should ask him what's going on in his day. I think it's just trying to take those extra moments and just kind of bring in that humanity into everything. But going into Sterling, I've never met Sterling. I've mentioned this a few times to you, right? But he's on my Facebook, and he seems like really happy guy. He's got a positive vibe. And then I think to myself, he has to have a lot of stresses in his life. He's running a brokerage. He's got all kinds of things going on, and all the energy he's putting out into the universe seems really positive. So it's interesting, and I think for me, even though I'm not like young, I'm still younger. So I'm always trying to learn. So I always look at people who are a little older and just say, I always believe this. Some people grow old and bitter and not nice. And then some people grow old and just beautiful, and they age like amazingly. I think that is a personal choice. Do you know what I mean? And that's it.
Yeah.
Comments on that?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, and for me, it's that we see that every day with people. Some people do just, they get old and they just kind of get stuck in their routine and they don't want to learn anymore. And just going back to what you had stated about tips for people that maybe want to start having a solid broker, really having somebody who's going to take care of you, and not just worried about, the check that you write at the office. Huge difference. Sterling and I was the first, we've been here since 2005, I believe. April 1st, 2005, it was him, myself, and the conveyancer. We were the first three people that started in this company together. And that feels good to say that, that we have that type of a long relationship where there's that trust built up, and having and learning from others like that in the industry, in any industry. I mean, I'm sure you have that within your digital network as well, and with colleagues on the social media front. But I think that it's very important. I have a few people too that I just will go and talk to, just a mentor. We just sit down and when my friend Mr. Wayne, he's not on Facebook. He did get a cell phone though, and he has texted me, so that's pretty cool. But
good job, Wayne. Shout out to Wayne.
I touch base with him. Actually, I'm due to probably touch base with him. We go for coffee or breakfast, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, and that's it. And I just listen to him. And he's right and around retirement age, and he's a teacher. But just again, someone else who can really you can learn from. I like to talk less. He wants me to talk. And I want to talk less, and I want to listen to him because he always gives good advice, for sure.
It's interesting too. The whole 2 ears and one mouth thing, and Bob Marley says it best. He says, once a man, twice a child. And I think over the last 5 years, one thing I've done is I've really shut up a lot. I have shut up a lot. I think I will definitely be honest and say I love the sound of my own voice. And but I've shut up a lot, and I listen a lot, and I don't know, I think life is really sweet right now, and I think that with technology and all these things that are happening, we're going through a cultural shift of like no other, and I think that's why I like to be a little bit I wouldn't say I'm controversial, but I make big statements, and I don't shy away from the dirty areas. The uncomfortable and dirty areas is where I've made a living, and I feel very comfortable being uncomfortable, if that makes sense. So anything that I put my name on it, I want it to be of the utmost authenticity. Last question, because I know your time is valuable. How has social media and marketing changed the real estate game in general?
Well, it's really altered it. It's altered, for most of us anyways, for the demographic that grew up on technology. So my age and younger, it's absolutely a game changer. For the new generation, it's absolutely a game changer. But for people, I'll give you an example. I have a sign on a property yesterday, and a couple called me. They had me paged through my office, which I get like 3 of those a year. Yep. They paged me through my office off my sign. Then they asked to come take a look. They asked for a physical printout of the highlight sheet. They told me they were 75 years old and they were downsizing their house. Yeah. I didn't have to ask if they had an email address for me just to send the PDF for them, right? For those clients, I love that, right? Because that reminds me of 1998. What you used to have to do, you used to just drive. There was no key safe. There was you would drive to an office to get a key physically, and then go to the house and show your client that, and then take the key back. Inefficient, absolutely, but there is the customer service with that. The way that I think that social media and technology has increased is if you go onto my blog post, onto my blog, cheap plug. I'm not going to lie. No. You're going to get it on. You're going to get the plug at the end. I have a 6,000 page, 6,000 word master essay on a buyer's guide, and each one has separate clips where you could go through each stage of the buying process. Okay. That wasn't possible anymore. Who's going to take a catalog and then thumb their way through it 15 years ago or 20 years to look at that kind of stuff? So the information is there, knowing the correct source, but at the same time, misinformation is there too. So it's made things clearer in many ways. Like there's more quantity of information out there for a home buyer, and which is great. So on the digital marketing front, I think that it's been really neat. I think that signs and bus benches and flyers had their place. Might in some areas and in very small instances still have their place, but digital's where it's at, right? People would spend 10 years ago even maybe 5 or 10% of their budget on digital. Now it's the opposite. It's 5 or 10% of their budget is on non-digital. And it's just about finding that niche, finding your digital voice now. That makes a huge difference. The final thing that I think it does is it's revolutionized reputation amongst realtors. Yep. And I think you and I have talked about this in the past, but nobody gives two bleeps anymore what company you're from.
No.
They want to know you. They want to know, if Jerad is from Sterling Real Estate, which I think is one of the best companies in the city, sure, or another brokerage, that's not going to matter to them. They're not going to say, Jerad, I love all the work you did. I see all your social media. I see how hard you work on your website. Your information is great. You're prepared. You're kind. You take your time. But you're not with XYZ Realty, and you're with Sterling, so I'm not going to use you. That doesn't fly anymore.
We call this though, Jerad. You know what we call this?
A bear poker.
Yep. Sorry to cut you off, but what we call that now is we call that like you. We call that individual branding. We call that personal branding. What you described there, and people don't. Absolutely. I always say it's everybody says it. You can work for your first name or you can work for your last name. It's why I named my own company Ryan Holtz Marketing, because nobody cares. Nobody gives a crap about XYZ marketing or blah 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 marketing. It's that real personal approach. And a lot of people say, Ryan, you're crazy for that, because doesn't that bring other headaches to it? Yeah, sure. I put my face out there and went on the front line, but the best sales, and I'm sorry, is no sales at all. People might say, well, Ryan, why do you invest the time and money and energy into putting a podcast on? I'm sorry. This is sales. Is this not branding? Look what we're talking about today. It's providing value in people's lives. And every time I do a podcast and I throw that episode up, people email me, they message me. It's just another way of providing that value. I don't want to be like, hey, Jerad, call Ryan and Ryan's going to, fulfill all your digital needs. You're just going to hear about me. You're going to think, who the hell is this guy? You're going to start doing your own fact checking, your back checking research. And then you're going to say, maybe this is cool dude. Maybe I want to work with him. Maybe you don't. I don't really give a shit. I just think that if you keep, like you said, doing good work, showing up, being knowledgeable in whatever product or service that you're pushing out, everything takes care of itself. And I can tell by talking to you today, you really love real estate. You really love your clients, and you love the sound of your own voice. And I think that's okay.
Yeah. And I'm also working on that.
No, but you know what? Hey,
and you know what it is, and you'll probably
go ahead.
I was just say that when Dejan gets older, you'll probably find this is that when you start hearing yourself and your children, you start really realizing some of the things you shouldn't be saying, or the tone of voice you shouldn't be saying, or how you maybe should not be speaking as much. Less is more. Less is more. My 3-year-old Miri, God bless her heart, she is right now. Yikes.
Yes.
She's teaching me lots.
Yes. Well, you know what, Jerad, thanks so much for coming on the show. This is the time to plug. Please also, when you get off, email me the link to that buyer's guide. I will include that in the show notes on my blog. But this is your time to shine.
Awesome.
How can people reach out to you? And as you're going through your little plug, give your website, your social media handles, and then I just want one ending statement of what I should title this show that would give benefit to people.
Okay, well, people can get a hold of me. You can talk to me in person. I don't have an assistant. I do everything myself. I feel that that's the best way to stay in touch with what's going on. PrimeEdmontonRealEstate.com is my website. Social media, Prime Edmonton Real Estate as well. That's for Instagram, and Twitter is at Prime YEGRE. And Facebook, same thing, Jerad Cox, Prime Edmonton Real Estate, pretty straightforward. Obviously, you can also just connect through this. And if there's one thing I would have for the title is the least tech-savvy realtor talks life, business, and education.
Okay, I like that. Email that to me, and I'm going to incorporate some of that in. So once again, thanks so much for coming on the Ryan Holtz Show podcast. Everybody, I will conclude this episode by saying I think there was great value. There was great information. As always, please go on to iTunes, Stitchers, and Google Play and rate the podcast. You can also find me at Ryan Holtz 1 on Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, and all that good stuff. And Jerad is, as I'm doing my plug and saying, come see me, he is dropping his phone. And visit the blog at ryanholtz.ca, but I appreciate all your listening and feedback. Over and out. Boom. Jerad, thank you so much, my friend. I will let you know when it's up.